Okay, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to look at number 2 on the chapter 2 review. And this is using transformations to graph functions. And so before I dive into doing an example problem here, what I'm going to do is just review our basic graphs that we have that you should kind of know what they look like in order to sketch some of the other graphs. Okay, so some of the basic graphs that we have are f of x is x squared. This looks like what? Well, it's a parabola. It goes over one, up one, right, to get on either side of the vertex, right? That's our standard x squared graph, okay? Another one that you'll run into is the square root graph. Okay, the square root graph, what does that look like? Well, it looks very similar to this. It's just half of one going sideways, right? So it's at 0, it's 0. At 1, it's 1. You can always plug in points if you don't remember how these look. Okay, but that's your square root graph. Okay. And then another one we want to look at is the absolute value of x. Okay. What does that look like? It's a v. Okay. So it goes through 0, 0, goes over 1, up 1, and it just has some straight lines shooting out from there. Okay. And then lastly, one that I want to look at as well is 1 over x. Okay, what does that look like? Well, 1 over x looks like at 1, it's going to be 1. At 2, it's a half, right? So it's like smaller. So it gets really small over here. As you get really close to 0, it shoots up, right? Because as you plug in like a half, 1 divided by a half is 2, right? 1 divided by 1/3 is 3, and so on. So it gets really steep there. And then it looks kind of the same way over here. At -1, it's at -1, right? And this is kind of what your 1 over x graph looks like, okay? So these are some of the most important graphs that you should know for the final, just what they look like. And so let's just review real fast. How is it that we deal with a transformed version of one of these graphs? So let's look at, we're going to look at number 2, and C is the one we're going to look at here. Okay, so this one tells me I'm trying to graph f of x is -3 times x plus 2 absolute values minus 4. Okay, so if you remember here, kind of the different pieces of this in here, what's next to the x moves you right and left, and it does the opposite of what you might think. So this is a plus 2, so I'm going to go to the left 2. Okay. This is a minus 4 on the outside, and that does what we think it would do. It goes down. Okay, since it's outside, not next to the x, that affects y, so we're going to go down 4. Okay, the 3 out front is a vertical stretch. And then the negative out front, that means it's going to be reflected over the, well, the negative isn't next to the x, so it's hitting the y, right? So it's making your y's negative, so it's going to reflect over the x axis. So when you have a negative, if you have a negative in front of the, not next to the x, it reflects over the x-axis because it's flipping all the y's to be negative of what they were before. Now if the negative was next to the x, it would reflect over the y-axis, okay? So let's sketch this thing. Okay, well, we know that we're going to be left 2, so 1, 2, and then we're going to be down 4. So we're going to be down here. Okay. We also know that we had a vertical stretch here, so the y values were going to get 3 times as big as they were before. Okay, so normally when I go over 1, I go up 1 with my absolute value graph. But for this one, when I go over 1, I'm going to go up 3, okay, for the vertical stretch. Only there's a negative here, so instead of going up, I'm going to go down. So 1, 2, 3. So over 1, down 1, 2, 3. Over 1 and down 1, 2, 3. So it's going to look like that. Okay. So that will be my graph of this function. Okay. So just remember, the things next to the x move you left and right, and it does the opposite of what you might think. The thing on the outside moves your y's, right? And it does what you would think. Numbers on the outside are stretching, okay? If this was like a 1/2 here, it would make it wider, okay? It would make it a wider shape. And negatives flip it upside down, okay? So hopefully that kind of helps just give you a brush up on how we did this, and I'll let you guys work on the other ones. You can check the answers and see how it goes for you.